而家啲嚟呢度要
有老鼠嗰啲啦。
會加租咧，加500蚊以上㗎啦。
係啊，冇問題。而家香港政府又幾好啊。
Ovo što sada vidite su najmanji stanovi koji postoje na našoj planeti, koji ponekad ne prelaze više od 2 kvadratna metra i koji nose nadimak kave s kuće. Unutar njih ne postoje sobe na koje smo navikli, sve što ta osoba posjeduje i sav njen život odvija se u prostoru poput ovog. Zavisno od vrste ovih stanova, u pojedinim od njih se ne možete ni uspraviti ili čak protegnuti, a da paradoks bude veći. Sve ovo dešava se u Hong Kongu, jednom od najbogatijih gradova svijeta.
A u nekoliko ovih stanova zavirit ćemo u ovom videu, donijeti vam priče ljudi koji u njima žive, te vam pokazati šta se sve krije iza ove više nego nevjerovatne priče. Ali prije nego se upoznamo sa ljudima koji žive u ovim stanovima, vrlo je bitno da znamo kako je uopšte došlo do toga da danas u 21. vijeku u jednom od najbogatijih gradova na planeti ljudi žive na ovaj način.
Hong Kong je posebna administrativna regija Narodne Republike Kine sa oko 7,5 miliona stanovnika. Grad je poznat po svojim neboderima, slobodnom tržištu i statusu jednog od glavnih svjetskih financijskih centara. Međutim, iza svega ovoga krije se jedna realnost. Hong Kong je grad sa najskupljim kvadratnim metrom stambenog prostora na čitavoj planeti. Dovoljno je samo reći da jedan prosječan stan u gradu košta između 20 i 25 prosječnih godišnjih plata, što u prevodu znači da bi jedan stanovnik Hong Konga trebao da štedi svoju kompletnu platu bez ikakvog trošenja četvrt vijeka, samo da bi mogao da priušti jedan običan stan. Poređenja radi, u Londonu je taj broj oko 10 godina, u New Yorku 8, a u Parizu 12 godina. Ali šta je zapravo razlog ovolikoj skupoći?
Pa postoji nekoliko faktora.
Hong Kong se prostire na relativno malo teritoriju od svega 1116 kvadratnih kilometara, ali ono što je još važnije je da je samo oko 25% te teritorije spremno za izgradnju. Ostatak čine strme planine, šume i zaštićena područja, pa iz tog razloga od ukupne površine Hong Konga samo 7% je do danas izgrađeno, što zaista stvara ogroman pritisak na tržište nekretnina.
S tim da uvijek treba uzeti u obzir da je Hong Kong po svojoj veličini na veličini jedne Banja Luke što se tiče kvadrature.
A ima 7 miliona ljudi.
A ima 7 miliona ljudi, dok u Banja Luci imamo 200.000 ljudi, koliko se ja ne varam.
I dalje 200.
Tako da je jedna veoma zasićena sredina sa mnogo ljudi i mnogo, mogućnosti za neki normalan život. Međutim, jedna stvar koja je negativna u Hong Kongu da su nekretnine izuzetno skupe i zajmovi su jako skupi.
So like for example, this kind of very informal rental housing, they would just stick a sticker like that to say they're seeking a rentee. And that one, for example, it says it's just a bed space, it's got hot water, TV, and then the rent is 1,800 to 2,800 Hong Kong. And you know, they just have the landlord's number and just call. And basically that's how people rent out these places and live there. A lot of those just usually single men, single women, older generation. Yeah.
How many people live in buildings like this?
No idea. Some of them can be quite large, so it depends on each apartment, how many subdivided units there are. Some of them can have hundreds or hundreds of them. It depends really.
Za vrijeme britanske vlasti vlada Hong Konga nije dozvoljavala da bilo ko može da kupi zemljište. Umjesto toga, zemljište su mogli da dobiju samo velike građevinske kompanije i to ne zauvijek već na 75 ili 99 godina. Ovaj sistem je bio zlatni rudnik za britansku vladu jer su zarađivali ogromne pare, ali je također stvorio situaciju gdje samo par moćnih kompanija kontroliše čitavo tržište nekretnina. A treći razlog je taj što je Hong Kong postao pravi raj za strane investitore koji kupuju nekretnine kao investiciju, a ne da bi u njima živjeli. Danas se procjenjuje da oko 43.000 stanova u gradu stoji prazno,
dok stotine hiljada ljudi živi u potpuno nehumanim uslovima. Upravo je kombinacija ovih stvari dovela do toga da danas određen broj rezidenata grada nema novca da iznajmi ili kupi neki normalan stan, a oni ljudi koji nemaju posla i koji ne rade su zaista ostavljeni u veoma teškoj poziciji.
Hong Kong treats itself as a free economy, a liberal economy. The government used to not really regulate a lot of things they didn't want to handle. And so housing was one of them, and the disparity of wealth and housing in Hong Kong is extremely wide. So we have people who live here at very high cost per square feet, and very, very heavy burden for them, mostly more than half of their income, whether it's government subsidy or salary. Some people are forced to live in these places, and it's a very common problem we hear every day from the news. The government always says it wants to tackle it and offer better quality housing, but somehow cannot manage to do so for several decades. That's a rough situation.
What are we going to see today? What will you show us?
今日我會帶你睇下啲板間房戶嘅惡劣情況嘅環境嘅性咯，係啊。咁你哋可以睇多啲，了解多啲板間房嘅情況咯。
Ponekad nismo ni svjesni u kakvim uslovima drugi ljudi žive na planeti, šta sve imamo u životu. Evo kucamo na vrata da vidimo da li će neko otvoriti, ali na hiljade ljudi živi u ovim zgradama. Ovo nisu pojedinačni slučajevi, ovo je zaista veliki procenat populacije Hong Konga koji stanuje u ovakvim mjestima.
等我睇入邊先，唔好入嚟住，唔好入嚟住。濕，我想睇下先，等出邊個叔叔翻嚟，整一樣個叔叔翻嚟食緊飯。唔好意思啊，叔叔阻住你食飯嚟，sorry。叔叔，你介唔介意蒙你樣做訪問？蒙你樣嘅，蒙樣嘅唔好。OK， 入。阿叔未翻嚟，阿叔幾點翻嚟啊？知唔知？唔係，阿叔叔幾點翻嚟啊？
你有冇唔係啊？而家啲嚟呢度用咩目的啊？講啲嘢
即係拍啲新聞 YouTube 新聞嚟。
係啊，我唔計嘅，要幫佢咁用嘅，整啲為嗰個整呢個嘢出去都唔好嘅，大家。
因為出外國啲人咧，了解翻咧香港啲人咧住嘅環境啊，窮即係我哋呢啲窮人住嘅環境啊，地方係。
我真係驚我。
And when the whole story started, in which ages actually?
I am not very familiar with the whole history of it, but I would say this is deeply related to the Hong Kong financial boom and the increase in the housing prices in Hong Kong because of financial speculation. Because Hong Kong is so small and the tax is low, actually what funds the government and all our public services, roads and infrastructure is from land sales. The government sells land to developers and developers sells the apartments to people, and because the housing prices were going up so quickly, a lot of investors, they buy and flip houses not for living but to make money from each sale. So as the housing prices go up, poorer people are unable to pay for what is normal housing for them. The salaries are not catching up with the increase in the asset prices, so this is what created this. And I would say this really became a much bigger problem after the 1990s and through the 2010s when the housing prices were going up like crazy.
Hoću da vam pokažem nešto što me dosta rastužilo iskreno. Obratite pažnju na ovo. Ovo je stan u kojem neko živi ove širine i ukoliko dođemo ovdje vidimo da je sav nečiji život stao praktično u ovu prostoriju ovdje. Tu ima ljudi 3-4 kvadrata maksimalno I ta osoba koristi ovaj merdevine da bi se popela gore, ali mnogo drugih kave stanova se tu nalazi. Vidimo ih ovdje, vidimo merdevine koje se koriste, tu je WC i iskreno nikada nešto ovako u životu nisam vidio. How long do you live here?
10幾年啦。
How much do you pay the rent here?
2400，即係計埋電費2400。
租金啊2600，唔係啊，未。
咁都幾貴喎。你係咪好難負擔啊？即係咪好貴啊？對你嚟講？
咁我哋而家退休人士係靠個4000蚊，除咗租仲有幾多啊？你話？
老細初嘅攞2000蚊，呢度嘅啲加租咯，冇辦法啦。
What do you like to do in the free time? What makes you happy today?
朝頭早5點到起身咯，咁啊刷牙洗面，咁啊7點鐘出門，6點鐘出門口咯，咁啊至到夜晚6點咁放工，然後跟住食飯瞓覺咁咯。
有時朝早7點零鐘啊出去行喎，可能就冇得出去啦。下晝有時出去，有時冇出去，就係咁。
冇㗎，咁啊朝頭早有陣時行下山咯。咁你冇嘢做退休㗎，咁你成日時間點啊？我冇理由瞓喺間房6、8瞓啊！你長期瞓唔得㗎嘛。
冇嘢搞，咪做乜嘢咧？冇嘢搞啫嘛！你做嘢唔俾你做，係咪？你冇人請㗎啦！你香港人知道65歲一般人唔請你㗎啦，地盤唔請㗎啦。好多年都冇返工啦我啊！冇啲人一般好少人出邊啊！點解邊度啊？冇錢喺邊度行啊？成日坐喺出邊啊，戇鳩鳩啊！有時一日出去行，有時都冇出去啊，有時有。
都冇乜特別，開心又唔開心啦。
有冇朋友啊、親戚啊？
有嘅嗰啲有，不過佢都唔知我住咩地方，都冇話俾你聽。我唔會話俾你聽。
What is the hardest thing about living here?
最唔好熱咯，冇冷氣，我當你有個窗，你冇風，周圍都焗啦。有陣時一把風轉太過熱，我咪要行出去街咯，出去嗰啲商場啊，咁咪行下咯。行有陣時行個零2個鐘頭咯，因為等佢冇咁西斜先至翻嚟咯。
有老鼠嗰啲咯，有時都有虱啊咁樣咯，唔知啊，有時見唔到啊好啲咯。一閂埋房門咁佢咧就會咁捐入嚟咯，冇捐入嚟咯。即係有時去出邊咧都會撞到啊咁。
呢啲就係洗手間，公共洗手間，即係咁多間屋共用2個洗手間咁樣咯。但係依家就暖暖地，如果一到夏天咧，呢啲板房就好熱嘅，出邊30度，呢度都成40度嘅，40度以上嘅，同埋會有陣時有啲老鼠啊，或者叫做木虱嘅多咯。
呢啲掛喺度啲衫嚟喎，呢度有風扇同個雪櫃仔。係啊，有陣時擠嗰啲，因為你冇訂擠啊嘛，咁咪擠啲飲品咯，擠啲水啊啲嘢咯。
U ovako malim, prenatrpanim prostorijama, bez higijene i adekvatne ventilacije, bolesti se lako šire, pa iz tog razloga i ne čudi da su tuberkuloza, kožne infekcije i respiratorni problemi sve češća pojava. Pojedine studije isto tako pokazuju da ljudi koji žive u ovakvim mjestima imaju za 60% veću vjerovatnoću da razviju i mentalne probleme poput depresije i anksioznosti.
一頭嘢冇咩，因為我以前嘅身體唔舒服㗎。啱差唔多好細喎，4、5年啊，頭昏啊，好似醫院啊話我那個腦部血管啊有問題嘛，有問題啊就成日食，你冇睇到啊？我喺度同買啲樽藥度喺呢度，你係啲見到啊？食得過啊？腦數啊？冇食得過就唔得，好細啊，差唔多冇嘢啊。
Jedan od najvećih problema ovakvih mjesta je ogromna vlaga preko ljeta. Preko 90% bude u Hong Kongu i sada je vruće, a sada je februar mjesec i zamislite kada dođe neki juni ili juli, koliko je neizdrživo, nigdje nema klima, sve totalno zapušteno. Evo mi smo došli na sam krov zgrade gdje dobijate jednu novu percepciju svega ovoga, pazite na kablove. Ali ovdje vidite kako izvana izgledaju KV stanovi, koliko je to suštinski maleno.
A možda najciničniji dio čitave ove priče je činjenica da Hong Kong zapravo ima dovoljno novca i resursa da riješi ovaj problem. Hong Kong je jedan od najbogatijih gradova na svijetu s ogromnim fiskalnim suficitom. Vlada ima dovoljno sredstava da izgradi pristupačne stanove, ali to jednostavno ne čini dovoljno brzo. Trenutna vlada ima programe javnog stanovanja, ali liste čekanja su toliko duge da neki ljudi čekaju do 6 godina samo da dobiju pristupačan stan.
如果要上公屋咧，上政府公屋咧，就要等10幾年㗎啦，到依家都要等20年㗎。呢啲屋就係太貴咧，好多人唔願租㗎咯，8000幾蚊。佢1年會加一次租嘅，會加租咧加500蚊以上㗎啦，咁就一路加落去咧，咁就越整越貴，好多人都唔願租呢啲㗎咯，係會寧願選擇第二啲租。
And the problem with most people is their income is just a little bit above the qualification ceiling, so they can't qualify for government subsidy, but the salary they get is not enough to actually live in proper housing, so that's why they need to, rent that kind of stuff and have more than half of their income taken as rent.
Speaking about the numbers, what is let's say you want to rent 2-bedroom apartment in some nice area of Hong Kong, how much can it cost?
I think it really depends on the neighborhood. The range can be quite large. For 2-bedroom apartment, I think maybe 300-400 square feet. I think you can at least expect maybe 2,000 USD at least at a minimum. Even if in areas that are not downtown and a bit complicated to commute.
係啊，冇辦法。而家香港政府又幾好啊！點幫啫？因為大陸咁樣死啦，大陸就100幾蚊喎，香港個金融俾啲食係夠㗎啦。65歲個個都要啫嘛。
生果金。
4000幾蚊唔係生果金啊嘛。
綜援咯。
4000幾啊唔係。
4000幾。
呢生果金1000幾蚊咯，係咪啊？
Ipak, u posljednje vrijeme postoje određeni znakovi promjeni. Nakon velikih protesta 2019. godine stanovanje je postalo jedno od ključnih političkih pitanja. Nova vlada Hong Konga je obećala da će izgraditi 330.000 novih stanova u narednih 10 godina, od kojih će 70% biti javni ili subvencionisani stanovi. Isto tako uvedene su nove mjere protiv špekulacije nekretninama, uključujući poreze na nekretnine koje stoje prazne.
If you could go maybe back in time, maybe live in another country, would you live in another country or would you change something maybe?
冇㗎啦，我覺得呢啲年紀好難去其他國家生活。後生啲又或者會唔同嘅決定嚟啊，可能第日買翻間屋咧。後生嗰陣時啲屋平，或者可能嗰陣時會諗下真係買翻間細嘅屋俾自己啊咁樣。但係而家冇。
How hard it is for the young people to afford a house today or a flat?
The best hope for any young person in Hong Kong is to be able to buy either subsidized government housing that they can purchase and own, or become a tenant of a government subsidized flat, and so where they pay a lower rent. But most of the young people, if they have a normal job, they likely won't qualify for the government subsidized leased housing. So the next chance they could get is to win the lucky draw, where they can get a chance to buy discounted price housing at maybe 30 to 40% discount. That's, I think, for a lot of young people, that's their biggest hope. But obviously, these are hard to come by. Not a lot of people get a chance. So most people, I think it's quite normal that you spend 50 to 60% of your salary just on rent alone, and you'll be paying rent for as long as until you're able to afford your own down payment for a house. Otherwise, you're just paying the down payment for your landlord.
And if you want to buy the same apartment, do people actually buy apartments?
A lot of people want to buy apartment. It's seen as something not a status symbol, but really to have something minimum in your personal life. I think it's very understandable. You start working, you buy a house, and you get married, and that's kind of the condition for
Everywhere
it.
in the world.
Yeah, so if you need to buy a house, you want to get a down payment, I think you would need at least 500,000 Hong Kong dollars. So I think that translates to what, maybe 70, 80 USD minimum just to be able to afford the down payment. And because the interest rate right now is quite high due to US financial policy, Hong Kong dollar follows that, so the mortgage becomes more expensive as well.
And when you finish paying the apartment, how much would you pay in the end, let's say?
If you finish paying the down payment and then you pay the mortgage every installment, I think maybe 1,000 to 2,000 US dollar per month in mortgage repayment. And then that would be a mortgage of 30, 40 years. Basically until you retire, like most of your paycheck will go to the cost of a house. And that's at the, the trade-off between low tax, high rent economy, yeah.
So you'll pay like around $500,000 USD in the end, maybe?
More than that, yeah. I think $500,000 USD is like on the cheaper end when you're like very, very lucky to find something like that.
And do you see any change in that in the future? Do you think that the trend will shift maybe?
I think this is really a macroeconomic question because of how tightly Hong Kong's economy is linked to China's economy and the real estate as well. And right now it's the downturn in China and in Hong Kong. Consumers have very low confidence and the housing prices have gone down a bit compared to several years ago. And so a lot of young people, like my friends, maybe they bought their apartment in 2017, 18. Now actually what they're paying for is costing, the value is less than when they first bought it. And they will have to continue paying the mortgage for decades and then not be able to know if the value will come back up. So I personally am not super optimistic, but it's really hard to say. And even if the housing prices come back up, it doesn't mean that regular people are better off because all the time we see time and time again, wealthy people, they're able to park their assets in in bricks, that we call it. You store your value, your assets in housing, and then the poor people will never be able to catch up with it.
And final thing, if you would be able to tell something to the president of Hong Kong or the mayor of Hong Kong, and he would for sure listen to you, what would you tell him? Do you think he could help you solve the crisis in a way?
講啲咩啊？都係公屋嗰啲咯，都係房屋嗰啲咯，有翻間。
公屋點啊？即係希望俾間公屋。
嚇，易啲啦，申請冇咁多複雜嘢，咁啊容易得啲咁啊好啲。應該啦。
我嘅選擇最緊要身體健康。
咁你已經身體健康。
Yeah, to really truly understand how normal people live, understand their livelihood is a difficult thing as a leader, and there are very hard choices to make when you try to make normal people's lives better, because that means you have to not cater so much to billionaires and businesses, and this is something that's deeply rooted in Hong Kong, and it's very hard to make that alternative, yeah. So I hope the leader of Hong Kong will understand better how just normal people live. They just want to have good housing, be safe, be able to raise their kids, not have to worry paycheck to paycheck.
What actually made you help the people? How did you decide to activate on this field?
咁我以前都係一個露宿者啦，露宿咗有10年出嚟，咗10年以上啦，咁就一直幫啲露宿者啦。自己一個係個 NGO 機構嘅創辦人，就專幫啲露宿者嘅。咁我以前瞓街嘅經歷就係俾屋企人搞到瞓街啦，咁又幫屋企人借財務，咁我自己又唔煙唔酒唔毒嘅，咁又自己又唔賭錢嗰啲嘅，咁啊自己一直去關心啲露宿者，帶好多人去了解露宿者同埋啲劏房板咁廣闊嘅情況，等人多啲了解多啲，知道多啲嘢咯。因為眼見露宿者好想人幫，好少人幫啊，咁我自己又攞個心去幫佢哋，有啲人就派啲飯又唔食得啊，試過縮臭聲嘅又有啊。我哋想俾啲溫暖佢哋，同埋佢哋有時唔夠衫褲剩嘅，我哋想俾呢啲溫暖佢哋。因為我瞓街嘅時期冇人派嘢，冇人剩嘅，咁我自己又 決心去一直幫佢哋啲露宿者啊，想多啲人可以了解多啲香港現時嘅情況，香港露宿者嘅情況同埋需要啊啲食，等多啲人了解多啲，知道多啲嘢啦，係會。
Da li će se situacija promijeniti, zaista je teško reći. Ono što je sigurno je da će problem stambene krize u Hong Kongu biti jedan od najvećih izazova ovog grada u narednim decenijama. I dok postoje obećanja, dok postoje planovi, dok postoje mjere, stotine hiljada ljudi nastavlja da živi u uslovima koji zaista nisu dostojni jednog običnog čovjeka, da stvar bude još gora. Sve ovo se dešava u jednom od najbogatijih gradova na svijetu. A možda baš ovo i pokazuje u kojoj fazi je svijet u kojem živimo upravo danas.